contrary to popular belief, you do not need a different suppressor for every firearm. Howdy folks, you're watching Deuce, and today I'm going to show you how this one simple 9mm suppressor will suppress all these firearms with the appropriate accessories. When you think 9mm suppressor, you automatically think of a pistol of some sort, just like this Glock 34. It's a Browning style action that has the barrel dropping just a fraction of a bit and moving back a little bit for the action to cycle correctly. Well, in order to do that, you need what's called a booster, which is that little guy right there. There's a picture of one right there, all disassembled like. But we're gonna go ahead and screw this onto the pistol here, which I cannot show on camera, of course. The booster allows the suppressor to move back and forth as the barrel is doing its thing, so the weight of the suppressor does not impact the cycling of the pistol. Now, if I pull on this, you can see the suppressor move away from the barrel, but it's just a piston with the big spring in there resisting its forces. Now let's put a few rounds through here just so I can prove that this actually does work. I'm shooting 147 grain subsonic ammunition, thus no ears. We all expected that to work. Of course it did, because that's what it was originally designed for. But what if I wanted to add this to my high point yeet cannon? Yes, it is a factory threaded barrel, but the barrel is fixed. It does not move. If I cycle the slide back and forth, you can see that the barrel does not move. It is fixed. It is fixed in place. So because this is a blowback action and a fixed barrel design, I do not need a booster. Not only do I not need it, I'm not supposed to use a booster on this particular type of firearm, because the movement, it will still be movement in the suppressor, and that could cause a baffle strike where the bullet impacts the inside of the suppressor, which is a big problem, because bullets hitting things that are expensive is never fun. And there are two ways to deal with this. Number one is to leave the booster in there, but put a spacer in there. I never use a spacer. I don't like them because you're still dirtying up your booster for no reason. But you can put, that's the cheap way to do it, is to put a spacer in there, which every manufacturer of suppressors offers a spacer of some sort for your booster for this exact issue. But what I like to do is remove the booster altogether and replace it with a solid mount. Now, these are the same threading, by the way. There's a 1/2 by 28 thread, which is basically everything 9mm and below in size, uses typically 1/2 by 28 thread in the United States. Overseas in Europe, they use something completely different usually, but here 1/2 by 28 threading for 9mm, 357 SIG, 22, 223 or 5.56, all your AR-15s chambered in 5.56. There's also going to be a 1/2 by 28 threading. These boosters just thread in, but they can get stuck a lot of times because there's a lot of carbon buildup around there and kind of welding in. So I 3D printed a wrench here, and it fits perfectly on that. And in just a few seconds, we have the solid mount now onto the suppressor, which will thread right onto the yeet cannon. In order to demonstrate that this works, we of course have the same 147 grain subsonic ammo, which actually it's barely subsonic. It's actually pretty loud. My own reloads for subsonic ammo is way quieter than these. These are commercial, which I just grabbed while walking out of the bunker. So we got a couple rounds loaded up here. Nice. Once you've added your spacer or your fixed barrel mount on your 9mm suppressor, it is perfect for 22 pistols, because they are also typically threaded in 1/2 by 28. Now this Firefly, this GSG Firefly, is shipped to the United States from Germany with the weird European threading. I can't remember what it is. It's some metric garbage, but there's an adapter that you can get for 1/2 by 28 for us good old freedom lovers. On a small pistol like that, that suppressor does look a little bit chunky, to say the least. But we're gonna go ahead and put some rounds through it just to prove to you that it does work. Now what's funny is I chose this Firefly for no reason except it was on the top of the shelf. I've always had issues with this GSG Firefly cycling, but it seems to cycle better with a suppressor on it. Today I'm using supersonic 22 ammo, but out of this short pistol barrel, it will be subsonic and very quiet. Trust me, I know what I'm doing here. It's so quiet. You definitely want to shoot 22 through a suppressor, because that is the closest thing to Hollywood quiet you will ever find. At this point, many of you are saying to your screen, well, Deuce, wouldn't a 22 specific suppressor work better? Sometimes yes, and I have a 22 suppressor now on this GSG Firefly. So safety off, and here we go. Was it quieter? Not really. No, the 9mm suppressor suppresses a 22 very well, very well. There are two big downsides about using a 9mm suppressor on a 22 pistol or 22 rifle. The first one is just general size. This is the size of a good 22 suppressor, and this is the 9mm suppressor that I just shot with it. Quite a big difference there in size and weight and all that good stuff. The other one is making sure that your 9mm suppressor can be cleaned by yours truly, by yourself, because 22 is much more dirty than 9mm, and it will gunk up the inside of your 9mm can much quicker than 9mm does. If this works on a 22 pistol, you can guarantee it that it works on a 22 rifle. This is a Rossi Rio Bravo, and it is a fun little lever action. Now at the end of a rifle, it looks way more acceptable than on that tiny 22 pistol. In the rifle, I'm shooting CCI standard velocity ammo, which is subsonic. It's really slow. It's like 1,000 feet per second or so. If you shoot high velocity ammo out of a rifle through a suppressor, it'll be quieter, but it will still have that really loud sonic boom from the bullet breaking the sound barrier because it is supersonic. So in order to make sure that it does not do that, you got to use subsonic ammo for your rifles because there's enough barrel in there for it to get to its full velocity. So quiet. Beautiful. Now, how does that compare to a honest to God 22 suppressor? Let's find out. Now for the 22 suppressor, quite a bit smaller, barely larger than the barrel itself in width. And we're going to go ahead and test this out. Very close, very similar to the sound of a 9mm suppressor. Instead of 22, what if you want to use your 9mm suppressor on something with a little more oomph, say a 9mm pistol carbine? Well, you can do that with the exact same setup, the spacer or the solid mount. We now have the 9mm high point carbine with the 9mm suppressor. Now, this is going to be the same for any pistol caliber carbine you have, as long as it has a 1/2 by 28 thread. Let's go ahead and shoot this again with subsonic 147 grain 9mm. It has been a very long time since I've shot my high point carbine, so we're going to find out if it still functions or if it needs lube or cleaning or whatever. Who knows? Let's find out. Nope, it's good. And again, with the extra barrel length, that 147 grain ammo was right on the cusp of supersonic. What if you want to use your 9mm suppressor on something even larger, say a 30 caliber AR rifle? You can do it if the manufacturer has designated that it's safe for subsonic ammo. Oftentimes, 9mm suppressors can shoot 30 caliber subsonics out of a certain length barrel. If you go to your suppressor's manufacturer's website, it will have a list of all the different calibers and the barrel lengths required to shoot those calibers under that specific model that you have or you're planning on buying. In the case of my personal 9mm suppressor, I can shoot 30 caliber ammo as long as it's number 1, subsonic, and number 2, at least a 16-inch barrel. Well, I have a 16-inch bolt action upper on my AR, and this is chambered in 300 blackout, and I'm shooting 230 grain subsonic ammo. One extra issue is that 30 caliber rifles are not threaded in 1/2 by 28. So far, everything we've used could use a 1/2 by 28 threading, but 30 caliber rifles are usually threaded in 5/8 by 24. You can see the difference right there. That's quite a bit larger for the 30 caliber threading. So I swapped out the solid mount to the 5/8 by 24 threading pattern. Now, every manufacturer will offer these different mounting options. Now let's go ahead and put a few rounds through here to show that it actually works. Now, these are the first rounds I have put through this rifle, so we will see how well she works. There we go. There's some bugs in the system here, I guarantee that one. But let's see if she functions. Pretty quiet. Oh, come on now. Very tight chamber. So other than the crappy cycling of the firearm itself, the suppressor had no problem whatsoever with subsonic 300 blackout. And if you're wondering, it does not have to be subsonic 300 blackout. I've shot subsonic 308 through here as well with no problems whatsoever. This is rated for any kind of 30 caliber subsonic round or any 9mm period. So a 357 SIG that is super duper sonic, no problem. And this suppressor would also be just fine on a 357 Magnum lever action rifle. If you got one of those fancy ones with a threaded barrel, here you go, this will work on that as well. In conclusion, a caliber specific suppressor is the best option, but it's also the most expensive and the most trouble. You can mostly get away with one of these 9mm suppressors without too much of an issue. You just gotta make sure that you're shooting the right ammo, the right barrel length, and have the right accessory package to mount it on your rifles. And that was the last round there. If you want to delve into supersonic rifle rounds and still have a kind of universal suppressor, I highly recommend the Silencer Hybrid. The 46 caliber hybrid pretty much takes care of everything. It will be much harder to clean if you use it for 22s, and it's a lot heavier than this 9mm can, but it is an option if you want to not limit yourself to subsonic rifle rounds. Well guys, that's it for me today. I hope you liked it. If you did, give me a like, go subscribe. A lot more is on the way. If you have any comments, questions, or show ideas, leave that down in the comments down below. I'll try to get to as many of those as possible. And as always, you guys have a great day. See ya.